It's the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, and we are live.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, brought to you by 90 Min. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and on this edition, we're going to be talking Emiliano Buendia. We're going to be talking Sergio Aguero, whose father has had some interesting things to say with regards to his son and Arsenal Football Club. So we'll cover all of that, as well as taking your questions and thoughts from the live chat. But before we get into any of the transfer talk, I first of all want to pay my condolences to the family and friends of former Arsenal goalkeeper Alan Miller, who sadly passed away yesterday at the age of just 52. That is absolutely no age to go. And I didn't know Alan, and I don't really remember Alan's time at Arsenal, but he's somebody I've heard about, somebody I've read about, and somebody that I had the pleasure of kind of interacting with on Twitter over the past couple of seasons as well, on multiple occasions. So always seemed like an absolutely top bloke, and I'm really sad to hear the news that Alan Miller has, of course, passed away. You only need to see the tributes coming in from some of his former teammates on social media, the likes of Lee Dixon, David Seaman, Kevin Campbell, Ian Wright, etc., to know that he was, of course, much adored by those guys. So just wanted to start off the podcast by sharing my condolences to Alan Miller's family. May he rest in peace. Right, let's get into it. Let's talk about the latest transfer rumours doing the rounds and the Emiliano Buendia reports that I'm going to be referring to. Well, they came out last night, and obviously we'd recorded the two podcasts by the time that news was broken. So I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and my views on it today. And as I say, we're also going to be touching on Sergio Aguero a little bit, who, of course, has signed for Barcelona. But interestingly, according to his father, Arsenal were interested in making a move for. So we'll get into all of that. We'll discuss all of that. And of course, as always, as I said, right at the top of the program, I'll be taking your questions and thoughts on all things Arsenal. Right, let's start with the Emiliano Buendia news. And it's been reported that Arsenal made a formal offer for the Norwich attacking midfield player on Wednesday. It's alleged that the offer was £30 million, or in the region of £30 million. But Arsenal weren't the only club making that bid or submitting that bid or hoping to bring Emiliano Buendia, or to tempt Norwich into selling Emiliano Buendia. Aston Villa also made an identical bid, according to what we've been hearing, what we've been reading. And although those initial approaches were rebuffed by Norwich City, as you'd expect, negotiations are due to continue over the next few days. It's also interesting to note as well that, of course, Emiliano Buendia's former club, Getafe, are set to receive 20% of the final transfer fee as well. So Norwich will be looking at their own interests. Norwich will be looking to bump that fee up in order to kind of cater for the money that is going to go Getafe's way. So interesting. Buendia is someone that we've talked to death about, I think, over the last few days. We talked a lot about Buendia during last summer's window as well, because he was, again, very heavily linked with a move to Arsenal. We even talked about him in January, but again, a deal never materialized. But it seems now that Arsenal are serious about their pursuit of Emiliano Buendia, because they've actually gone and submitted a bid for him. My thoughts on Emiliano Buendia have not changed. I think he's a talented boy. I think he's someone with great ability. I think he's someone with the right attitude. I think he's someone who works incredibly hard off of the ball. Also is versatile in the sense that he can operate from the right, from the left, or through the middle, which is obviously great for Arsenal. And you'd feel that if he was to come in, the fact that he can operate from a flank as well might be a good thing for somebody like Emile Smith-Rowe, who is obviously looking to nail down that number 10 position as his own. So I like Buendia, but I do feel it is a little bit of a risk. And, a lot of people are going to slag me off for this. And, if Emi Buendia comes in and does well at Arsenal, I'll be the first to say I was wrong, and I'll be the first to give him credit. But I do feel like the transition between the Championship and the Premier League or the gap between the Championship and the Premier League is significant. And I wonder if he'll be able to make that transition. And when I say make that transition, I mean mirror the form that he showed in the Championship. Can he even get anywhere near close to the numbers that he was delivering in the Championship? Yes, he's got plenty of experience of playing in the UK, and obviously that helps. He's played in the Premier League before, albeit just the one season. But I do worry that this will be, because of the fee that's going to be involved, because we know that a £30 million bid has been rebuffed, which means that we're going to have to push harder than that. I think that, for me, it is a little bit of a risk. And I'm sorry, like, I'm not trying to put a downer on it. I'm not trying to put a dampener on it. I don't want to be that guy, but I do feel like it is a bit of a risk, especially at that price. People have talked about Martin Odegaard as well as a potential alternative, and Martin Odegaard is a player I quite enjoyed watching during his time at Arsenal, and I felt it was someone that maybe a couple of months ago we should have been going out all out to sign. But what I would say with Martin Odegaard again is, yes, I like the player, but again, it's all dependent on the price. And at a time where Arsenal need to address a number of areas, at a time where I don't think we're going to bring in the transfer fees for some of the players that we're looking to move out that some of the others do, I think it's important that we spend our money wisely. And if Buendia comes in, obviously I'll be happy. And if he comes in and does really well, I'll be ecstatic. He's not because I don't like the player. It's just because I worry about him being able to step up from the Championship to the Premier League, and not just to the Premier League, but to a club where the demand is always there, where you're expected to win games week in, week out, where teams are going to come and park the bus against you, and you're expected to have the guile, the creativity, the mindset, and the persistence to be able to break those teams down. So I do like Emi Buendia, but at £35 million, which is probably what it's going to take to persuade Norwich to sell, I am a little bit wary of it. I've got to be honest. I can't help but have that feeling. I can't shake it at the moment. I really can't. As I've mentioned Martin Odegaard, and obviously our hopes of bringing him in on a permanent deal have taken a bit of a blasting over the last couple of days, with Carlo Ancelotti speaking quite positively about the Norwegian and his plans for him going forward. Of course, Carlo Ancelotti has just taken over the reins at Real Madrid for a second time. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, going back to Buendia, we know that Aston Villa made a bid as well. And I've seen a lot of Arsenal fans kind of going into a little bit of a meltdown on social media saying, how on earth are we competing for a player with Aston Villa? Well, let's put it right. If it comes out that Norwich have accepted offers from both Arsenal and Aston Villa, the player is not going to choose Aston Villa over Arsenal. Let's get that straight. Arsenal fans going into meltdown over that on social media are being, in my opinion, disrespectful to their own club. I mean, how can anyone believe that Emi Buendia would opt to join Aston Villa, who, by the way, were supposed to be having a great season and still managed to finish in the bottom half of the table, 3 places below Arsenal, who had their worst season ever? How can that be? Why would he pick Aston Villa over Arsenal? He won't. He simply won't. The only possible way that Emi Buendia joins Aston Villa and not Arsenal, if, of course, Arsenal are as interested as we're led to believe, if Arsenal have actually made these bids, is if, Norwich don't accept Arsenal's offer, because there is no way that Emi Buendia selects Dean Smith's Aston Villa over Arsenal. It's just not going to happen. So Arsenal fans who are out there and really sort of digging in on that, how are we competing for a player with Aston Villa? How is it possible that the player that we want is going to join Aston Villa over us? He's not. That's not going to happen. Honestly, it really isn't. So I wouldn't be worried about that in the slightest. If Arsenal are all in for Emi Buendia, if Arsenal get their offer accepted, then Emi Buendia, when it comes down to contract negotiations, is not going to choose Aston Villa over Arsenal. Simple as, in my opinion. The other bit of news that I wanted to talk a little bit about was some comments from Sergio Aguero's father, in which he's been talking about his son. And of course, he's been quite vocal in the press over the last few days, Mr. Aguero Sr., talking about, Pep Guardiola, talking about the fact that he felt that Pep Guardiola crying when Aguero was leaving was fake, etc., etc. But his latest revelation, and he spoke about this speaking to Radio Le Red the other night, he said that Arsenal were interested in his son. He says he's happy right now after signing for Barcelona. I see him as very happy. He didn't know what was going to happen with his future. There were several clubs interested in signing him. Arsenal were interested in him and Chelsea until the last minute. If he didn't stay in England, it was going to be Italy or Spain. So, according to Mr. Aguero Sr., Arsenal were one of the clubs interested in taking Sergio Aguero on a free transfer in order to bolster their striking options. And Sergio Aguero would have wanted mega wages. I think it's quite clear that we need a bit of a reform in the centre forward position, particularly if we're going to lose Alexander Lacazette, which we might do this summer. Sergio Aguero would have been someone you look at as a player who could come in and, as a proven track record of scoring goals in the Premier League, already has a very good relationship, an existing relationship with Mikel Arteta too, which would have worked in our favour. But, Sergio Aguero's father, what I will say is he's been kind of very vocal ever since it was made clear that Aguero would not be staying at Manchester City. And it feels like he's clout chasing a little bit. He is making comments. He is digging people out. He's trying to keep the spotlight on his son. And he's trying to kind of discredit Manchester City, I feel. And by linking him not just with Arsenal, but with a club that beat Manchester City in Chelsea in the Champions League final, and suggesting they were interested till the very last minute. It's kind of trying to hint at the fact that Man City have made a mistake in allowing Sergio Aguero to go. And, I would take that with a pinch of salt, as I always say, when it comes to players' fathers and agents and God knows what else, coming out with things like that. But, take it with a pinch of salt. But it does seem as though Sergio Aguero's father is just fishing for some headlines, and that he's done, because look, he's got it on the Chronicles of a Gooner. What more do you want? Let's bring you up to speed on the Matteo Guendouzi situation. Now, of course, we know that he is likely to leave the club this summer. According to Le 10 Sport, Arsenal have set a price of over 10 million euros for Matteo Guendouzi. That translates to around about £8.5 million. And that is what they have gone back to Marseille and quoted if, of course, the French outfit are serious about signing Matteo Guendouzi. Now, we heard initially that they were only interested in taking him to the club on loan. That has developed a little bit further, and Marseille are looking at the possibility of taking Matteo Guendouzi over there on a permanent deal. But Arsenal have made it very, very clear that they are not willing to accept anything less than 10 million euros for Matteo Guendouzi. So the bar has been set in terms of an asking price. I wonder if, as the transfer window goes on, as we get closer towards the business end, whether Arsenal's stance on that will soften, because, of course, as we've said time and time again, Matteo Guendouzi's Arsenal contract will be going into its final year if he does stay, and that is not a great situation for the club to be in. So you feel that they would look at trying to, to save themselves that kind of from being in that kind of situation, and to earn themselves a little bit of money that they can then reinvest over the course of this summer, which is going to be a massive, massive summer for Arsenal in terms of taking the team forward. Let's get your questions in the live chat box. I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'll pick up as many of those as I possibly can between now and the end of the stream. Let's pick up this comment from Brad Richardson, who says, "My biggest concern about Buendia is I feel we're overpaying for him like we've done for Pepe, Xhaka and Mustafi." Brad, that's my feeling as well. It's not that I don't rate Emi Buendia, and if Arsenal had bags and bags of money and, could go and do this deal and still do more, or could go and do this deal without it significantly handicapping us in other ways, then of course, I'd be all for it. I think I've talked a lot about the need to do low risk but high reward signings, or signings that have the potential to prove to be high reward. And this one is high risk, rather than low risk. I wouldn't. Did I say high risk or low risk? What I meant to say, I'm all over the place. It's Friday, forgive me. What I meant to say was I want to see low risk signings with the potential to bring high reward. And this is a high risk signing because you're bringing someone in who has excelled, yes, but has excelled in the championship. And you're going to ask him to come and mirror, or at least try and replicate as closely as possible, obviously within reason, because we know there's a difference in the two leagues. But, we're going to have to rely on him to do that. And obviously Arsenal feel that he can, because they've obviously lodged this bid for him. And fingers crossed, if the deal does get done, he's able to do that. But put it this way, it's not one I'm jumping up and down about right now. It's one with the potential to be a really good signing, but it's not one I'm jumping up and down about. And maybe just because I've become so disillusioned with Arsenal over the last few years, I feel like I need that kind of signing where I can jump up and down, because it would make me feel better going into the new season. I don't know, but that's how I feel. Let's go back over to the live chat box. Matt says, any news on the Onana verdict? He'll probably get a lifetime ban. And now we're linked with him. Yeah, you know what I mean? No, there is no official verdict yet on Andre Onana's case. Of course, he faced the panel from the Court of Arbitration for Sport to make his appeal, and he's looking to get that ban reduced, which would, of course, from what we're led to believe, open the door for a transfer to Arsenal in the region of around about £7 to £8 million, which feels like a bit of a steal given Onana's reputation prior to him, of course, being banned. Ebby Vander asks, how much would you consider a good offer to be for Aubameyang if one was to come in? And we talked about this on one of the shows yesterday, the reports in the Telegraph suggesting that Arsenal are open to the possibility of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang being sold this summer. And you're asking me what I would take for him. I think anything between 25 to 30 million pounds is probably fair for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I'd be a little bit reluctant because we know that even at his worst, Aubameyang scores goals, and goals are very difficult to replace. So I'd be a little bit reluctant. But if Arsenal are really clearing the decks, if Arsenal really are going for a rebuild, then you're talking about someone who's 32 years old and who's probably just had his worst season in an Arsenal shirt for a number of reasons, some outside of his control, admittedly. But I would consider a bid of around 25 to 30 million pounds, if that's what you're asking, mate. Christian Hoover says, if Villa offered Grealish for 40 million plus Emile Smith-Rowe, would you accept? I'd rather we just kept the money and paid for Grealish, paid whatever we were supposed to pay for Grealish. I really like Emile Smith-Rowe. I think he's got incredible ability. I think he can go on to wonderful things. So I'm not sure that I'd give Emile Smith-Rowe away. I'd give someone else away, or I'd pay the price that they want, which is supposed to be around about 70 to 80 million pounds. So, yeah, I can't put my hand on my heart and say that I would give Emile Smith-Rowe away at the moment. Although I really, really do admire Grealish, but I just think Smith-Rowe's ceiling is incredibly high, and I think if he's nurtured right, he can go on to be, somewhere around Jack Grealish's level. I genuinely do believe that. I think he's that talented, and I've said that for years when it comes to Emile Smith-Rowe, having watched him grow up through some of the youth teams, etc., etc. Let's move on. Let's see what else we've got here. Marble Halls TV says he'd rather see Basuma and a left back done before Buendia, but he doesn't trust the club to do the proper business. I think that centre midfield is the absolute priority. I agree with you on that sense. It's absolutely got to be the number one. It's absolutely got to be what we look to invest the most money on. Yes, an attacking midfielder would be nice. When you consider that defensively Arsenal improved last season, and the inability to break down teams, particularly in the first half of the season, was a big problem for us. You can understand why there's a need for an attacking and a creative midfielder, particularly having sent Martin Odegaard back to Real Madrid. But I agree that centre midfield is the main priority. I think left back is one as well. I agree with you there that we need to look at. But that could be a less high profile signing for me. That is one where we're just looking to backfill a position. Whereas in the centre of midfield, I think we really do need to do some work. And if we could only spend money on one area this summer, that would be the area for me. The centre of midfield, I think it's incredibly important. What else have we got here? What else have we got? There was a comment that came. Stephen Andrews says, Harry, look at the amount of championship players that come to the Prem and smash it. We can't turn our nose up at this signing. I don't want to say I'm turning my nose up at it, because I'm not. I feel like if Arsenal are going to spend big money on an attacking midfielder, then they have to do it knowing that midfielder is going to come in and do the business immediately and be able to manage that transition between the second tier and the first tiers of English football. I think you make a good point, Stephen. There are a lot of players that have come up from the Championship and done very, very well. But equally, for every one of those, there will be players that have come up from the Championship and just got lost in the Premier League. And there are a lot of those too. And I think you have to consider that. And I think as much as people rate Emiliano Buendia, and as much as he looks to have the ability to go on to really good things, you have to be somewhat wary of that. You have to be somewhat wary of the jump up in standard. People have defended him in the chat box, and I saw somebody saying that he was excelling in the Premier League as well, but people only focused on the 1 goal and the 7 assists. I mean, how can you judge if he was excelling or not in a really crap Norwich City side that were relegated so easily? You know, it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard indeed. What else have we got here in the live chat? Let me pick out a couple more before we wrap it up. Chef CG says, will Reece Nelson be going to Olympiacos? There is talk of it. There's talk of the Greek champions being interested in him, but nothing concrete as of yet. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that one. But at the moment, nothing concrete on that. Let's pick out a couple of bits. Matt G says, Harry, sounds like the point you're making about Buendia is you would rather spend 70 million on Grealish than 40 million on Buendia. Is that right? That's absolutely spot on. You've basically made my own point better than the way I've made it. So thank you, Matt. Really, really appreciate that. Yeah, that's exactly it. I'd rather break the bank on someone that I 100% know is up to it at this level, and there's no question marks around whether he's able to step up that level. And Buendia might come in, and Buendia might be good enough and might be a 30 million pound player. But the point is that Arsenal need so much work in other areas. If buying a 30 million pound attacking midfielder who there are some question marks around stops you doing other business that you need to do, then that's not good business. It's not smart business. Graham Watts makes the point that Martinelli came from the second tier Brazilian league. He absolutely did. But how much did Gabriel Martinelli cost? It was what I call, and I've been calling over the last few weeks, a low risk transfer with the potential to bring high rewards. Somebody spotted Gabriel Martinelli, felt that he's got the ability to go on and push on to the next level. And in Gabriel Martinelli, someone who Arsenal signed for £6 million, you're now looking at an asset that's worth in excess of £20 million. So that's exactly the type of transfer I want to see Arsenal making. To spend £6 million, you could basically, the money that Arsenal are spending on Emiliano Buendia, you could spend that 5 times on, on Gabriel Martinelli's. And even if one of them proves to be a hit, then it's been a decent investment. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not that I don't like him. It's not that I don't rate him. It's just that there is a level of risk involved in signing Emiliano Buendia because of the transfer fee, not because of the players. Not because of the players, sorry, and not because of a lack of quality. Because of the transfer fee, there is a risk involved with signing Emiliano Buendia that I'm not 100% comfortable in Arsenal taking right now. And that's just me. That's my opinion. Hopefully I'm proven wrong. I'll be delighted if I am and he comes in and turns Arsenal's fortunes around. But, let's see. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. I'm going to pick out one more, I think. I'm going to pick out one more. comment or question before we we jump off? Big hello to Daniel, and thank you for your kind super chat, mate. Really appreciate it. Sooty says the top clubs don't buy potentially good players, they buy proven players, which comes at a price. If we want to challenge, you have to spend on proven players, not gamble on maybe players. Completely agree with that. Emiliano Buendia at Premier League level, at the highest echelons of the Premier League, is a maybe player because he's not done it yet. He hasn't proved it to anyone. The top clubs do buy the top players, and of course they pay big money for them, but the reality is that Arsenal have fallen behind, and we don't have owners who are going to throw hundreds of millions of pounds at the upcoming transfer window. So we have to get creative, we have to be smart, and we have to essentially do a little bit like what Leicester have done, which is close the gap on the top four by buying players that are low risk with a potentially high reward. And it's up for debate what low risk is. Is low risk 10 million pounds? Is it 20 million pounds? Is it 25 million pounds? Is it 30 million pounds? And that is all relative, to the club and the club situation. But I agree, I don't think that Emiliano Buendia is a bad player, but he is a bit of a maybe player because at this level, at a big club where the demand is there every single week, I think it's important that, that he's able to manage that transition, and nobody really knows whether or not he's capable of that at this moment in time. That's just the way I feel about it, and I know a lot of people would disagree, and that's absolutely fine. But that's my feeling, and I can't really shake that. And the whole point of this podcast and this channel is that I give you, what my view is, and not what I think you want to hear. So that's my view. And hopefully I'm proved wrong. Sometimes I am proved wrong. Sometimes I'm proved right too, but sometimes I am proved wrong. And look, if it's a signing that Arsenal pull off and then it's one that benefits Arsenal, I'll be the first to eat humble pie and be absolutely buzzing at what Buendia brings. I'll be behind him all the way. I'm an Arsenal fan at the end of the day. But I just feel like there's a little bit too much risk associated with his transfer. And it worries me. It does. All right, we're going to leave it there. I'm going to leave you guys to enjoy the rest of your Friday. I'll catch you all a little bit later on with some more Arsenal content. Don't forget to hit the like button on your way out. In fact, let's check where we are in terms of likes right now. I can see there's over 150 of you watching us live right now, but we've only got 32 likes. Let's try and get it up to 100 likes by the time the outro plays. There's more than enough of you watching to do that. Doesn't cost a thing. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we'll be back with more Arsenal content very, very soon. Until next time, let me know in the comments your thoughts. Emiliano Buendia, is it too much of a risk at around about 35 million pounds? I'd love to hear from you. Take care.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.